Hello and welcome to our Action Research Report. My name is Johnny Diamond and I'll be presenting this today with my colleague Mamta Arvind. Our research question was, why do learners choose to engage or not engage with online math resources in college? And before we start the presentation today, we invite you to go to menti.com and use the code provided in the chat section, because there's one question that we'd like you to answer today. And the question is, as a maths teacher or a lead, on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you in your learners' ability to work online and independently? 1 is the least confident and 5 is the most confident, because we're very interested in teachers' perceptions of their learners and their learners' ability to work online, and especially even more in this current climate. So what I'd like to do, please, is go to menti.com, look at the chat section for the code. If you answer that question, and we'll go through the results after the presentation. Okay. Before we start, I'd like to say a big thank you to all our network partners for being so welcoming, so open, and so supportive for all our groups. The Action Research project, without their support, without their teachers, their leaders, and their students, we couldn't have done this. So this goes from creating the Action Research question to then coming into Leeds City College for the day to support the data analysis. A huge thank you for that. Okay, so let's start with why. Why did we choose this question? As a college, we have a clear and detailed online learning strategy. We have independent learning zones. We have a plethora of resources. We're a Google reference college. We try and install independence and online learning at all points, and even more so in maths. But still, what we realized is there's still learners who still chose not to use all the available technology in the class or in the independent learning zone. And we wondered why. Because what we found is that when we had learners who just actively chose not to do it, and learners who really love technology, we had teachers there who were having to create a mixture of high quality online resources and high quality paper resources, and their time spent planning just increased, and that's something we want to reduce. So this is why I wanted to look at why learners chose not to use technology in the classroom. When we're looking at the research, there's not much research about the motivation to use technology, especially not in maths. So that's limited. The current research around using technology in a classroom is about gamification. How can you bring maths games or technology games into the classroom as a different model? And lots of research talks about achievement of using technology, but it's about using mobile technology, and that can be anywhere in the world. We were specifically looking for motivation in the classroom. So what I'll do is I'll hand you over to my colleague Mamta now then to go through some more of these slides.
Thank you, Johnny. Hello, everyone. From this infographic, you can see that the action research was carried out with 8 other network partners. Each of the network partners had at least one participating teacher and a group of at least 15 learners. We collected data from 5 sessions, and the action research teachers were allowed to choose any topic within the 5 strands. These strands were number, algebra, ratio and proportion, shape and measure, and statistics and probability. The teachers were allowed to choose and use any online math resource based on existing software that was used in their college. During those 5 sessions, when the data was collected, learners were asked to choose between a paper or an online plenary task without any help, direction, or influence from their teacher. At Leeds City College, we used Heggerty Maths as our online resource. Looking at the research methods, we used 2 surveys, student and teacher audio or video interviews, and an observation schedule. We decided that a mix of these research methods would help us to collect both quantitative and qualitative data. The respondents were all GCSE resit learners who were aiming to achieve a grade 4, and they were chosen by the participating action research teachers. At the beginning of the project, we had 202 learners and 14 action research teachers. By March 2020, when half of us had finished doing our observation schedule, we were left with 136 participating learners and 13 action research teachers. Some learners who had achieved a grade 4 in their November resits did not continue with the project after their results in January. We still had 2 outstanding surveys which we could not conduct due to COVID-19. We collected both quantitative and qualitative data. The quantitative data used a 4-point scale which was clearly labeled, and we made sure that no ambiguous words were used. Quantitative data was analyzed using modal values so we could find out the most common response. And to analyze the qualitative data, we used thematic coding and established common themes within the given responses. For example, Wi-Fi issues, takes too long to get in, takes ages. All these common themes were all put under one heading, Wi-Fi or login issues. Now let's have a look at some student data. On this slide, you can see that 69% of the 202 learners who completed the survey chose a paper resource over an online resource. Their main reason for choosing a paper resource was that they were able to show their working out. Other reasons that were also highlighted were the ease of access and their personal preference. On the other hand, 31% of the learners who chose online stated that it was easier to use an online resource and they could watch videos for guidance. So these were the reasons that they decided that online was a preferred option for them. The next slide shows information that we collected from student interviews. From the 56 learners who were interviewed, around 55% opted for paper rather than online. The main reason for their choice was due to the fact that there were Wi-Fi or login issues, which could also suggest that this is a persistent barrier against learners opting to work online. Other reasons also included that they were getting distracted when online, and there was too much content and they were getting confused with the content on online resources. The next slide shows information from the teacher data. So let's look at what teachers said from their experience about learners not engaging with technology. From the 10 teachers that were interviewed, 80% were of the opinion that the learners' lack of motivation and confidence was the main reason for their lack of engagement with the online resources. The other reasons also mentioned by the teachers were learners' preference to work on paper, to show their working out, poor Wi-Fi, and having no access to IT at home. I will now pass you on to Johnny, who will go through the last part of the presentation.
Thank you, Mamta. So, what can we learn and what can we recommend going forward from this? So one thing we did learn very quickly is that Wi-Fi was a common issue across all our network partners and ourselves. Now, from this, we need to make sure that going forward, the infrastructure is checked in the rooms where any research will be conducted, where a Wi-Fi enabled device is used. It sounds very simple, but if you're going to use Wi-Fi in a classroom, you need to make sure all parts of it are checked, because we know learners like to go into the corners, and if they're in the corner with their device and there's no Wi-Fi, then they can't get online. Also, where possible, think about upgrading the Wi-Fi systems in the college, if available. So that would mean you go around and you actually have your IT systems to check the Wi-Fi in all the rooms, see which ones have the strongest strength of Wi-Fi, and then you do your research in there. And then the weaker ones, can they be upgraded so they're more usable for a session? Another recommendation we can say is that learners, they like the space to write, to do the answers. So if you are going to use things online, you need to make sure there's space for them to write their answers online. So that may mean you need to invest in some digital pens and some pads for them to write in, or the software you're going to use online, there's a facility on that software where they can actually use their mouse and a stylus and write and record their e-exercise book, so their work is saved online in a digital form. The last recommendation we can say is that teachers believe that learners' confidence and motivation and the skills at using the online tools were quite low. So teachers and learners need to be upskilled with the use of the technology and the software in advance before any research would happen. So every learner and teacher is very confident with the systems. So when they're having trouble logging on, it's not due to the learner not knowing how to log on. It will be down just to a Wi-Fi issue. So to iron out those problems of learners struggling with the systems, we need to make sure there's a robust and standardized induction to all of these at the start. And a final thought then from this is, we thought about that the learners say that because the exams are on paper, they prefer paper. In the current climate, if the end exam was online, would learners still prefer to use paper in class? Well, think about this. Thank you for listening. And thank you from Mamta and myself.